Jake Morrison walked down the long metal hallway toward the massive doors of the Galactic Federation Council chamber. His black diplomatic suit felt heavy on his shoulders, and sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cool air. Behind him, Lieutenant Amy Collins carried a briefcase containing Earth's formal application for membership in the galactic community. Her face was pale but determined. The doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a sight that made both humans stop and stare. The chamber was enormous, stretching up so high that the ceiling disappeared into darkness. Thousands of alien beings filled curved rows of seats that spiraled around a central speaking platform. Strange lights flickered and danced across the walls, casting weird shadows everywhere. Jake had studied images of the various alien species, but seeing them in person was overwhelming. The Valthari sat in the front rows, their tall bodies covered in what looked like blue crystal skin. Their 3 eyes moved independently, scanning the room with obvious boredom. Behind them, the insect-like Crexina clicked their sharp mandibles together in rhythmic patterns. Their black shells gleamed under the chamber lights, and their compound eyes reflected everything like broken mirrors. Further back sat the Nethys delegates, massive creatures that looked like walking trees made of flesh. Their thick tentacles writhed constantly, never still for even a moment. Each tentacle was as thick as Jake's waist and covered in what appeared to be mouths that opened and closed silently. Other species filled the remaining seats. Some floated in clear tanks filled with colored gas. Others hung from the ceiling on thin cables. A few looked almost human except for their green skin and extra arms. The variety was staggering, but they all had one thing in common. They were all staring at Jake and Amy with expressions that clearly showed amusement. Ambassador Morrison of Earth announced a mechanical voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "You may approach the speaking platform." Jake walked forward, his footsteps echoing in the huge space. The platform rose from the floor as he stepped onto it, lifting him up so that all the aliens could see him clearly. He cleared his throat and began to speak. "Honored delegates of the Galactic Federation," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through hidden speakers, "I come before you today to formally request membership for the human species of planet Earth. We have monitored your communications for several decades and believe we are ready to join the galactic community." The reaction was immediate. A sound like breaking glass filled the chamber as the Valthari began what Jake assumed was laughter. The Crexina mandible clicking became faster and sharper. Even the floating species in their tanks seemed to bubble. With amusement, Ambassador Zixtal of the Valthari rose from his crystal seat. He was at least 9 feet tall, his blue skin catching the light as he moved. When he spoke, his voice had a musical quality that somehow made his words sound even more insulting. "Humans seek membership in our federation?" Zixtal asked, his 3 eyes focusing on Jake with obvious disdain. "These primitive bipedal creatures who still burn dead plants for energy? Who wage constant wars over simple resources like water and metal?" More laughter filled the chamber. Jake felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his expression neutral. Amy stepped closer behind him, ready to provide support if needed. "We have been observing your species for some time," continued a massive Nethys delegate, its tentacles waving as it spoke. "Your technology is laughably backward. Your fastest spacecraft barely reach your own moon in reasonable time. You have no energy shields, no gravity control, no faster-than-light travel. You cannot even agree on a single planetary government." Another alien spoke up, this one looking like a giant spider made of metal. "Your weapons are crude chemical explosives and metal projectiles. You fight each other over invisible lines drawn on maps. Your cities pollute your own air and water." Jake tried to respond, but Zixal raised one long-fingered hand for silence. "Perhaps most telling," the Valthari ambassador said, "is your complete lack of unity. Your planet is divided into hundreds of separate governments that constantly fight each other. How can a species that cannot achieve peace on a single world hope to contribute to galactic civilization?" The chamber filled with more alien sounds of amusement. Jake could see delegates passing what appeared to be written notes to each other, probably jokes about human primitiveness. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Honored delegates," Jake began again. While it is true that humanity faces challenges, we have also shown remarkable adaptability and innovation. In less than a century, we went from primitive flight to landing on our moon. We have begun to solve our energy problems and reduce conflicts between our nations. A century to reach your moon, laughed another Veltheri. Our children build toys that travel faster than your best rockets. Your moon is a barren rock, added a Crexina representative. We terraform entire planets in the time it takes you to build a simple space station. The formal vote was called without any real debate. Jake watched as thousands of alien delegates registered their decisions. The result appeared on a massive screen above the chamber in dozens of different alien languages. Even without translation, the meaning was clear. The vote was unanimous. 0 in favor of human membership. Ambassador Zixtel stood once more to deliver the official decision. The Galactic Federation hereby rejects the application of the human species for membership. You are deemed technologically insufficient, politically unstable, and culturally primitive. We recommend you continue developing for several more millennia. Before attempting to contact us again, the chamber erupted in what Jake was now certain was laughter. The sound was deafening, coming from thousands of different species in dozens of different ways. Some made musical sounds, others clicked or buzzed, and a few simply vibrated in their tanks. As Jake and Amy left the platform and walked back toward the exit, they could hear continued comments from the delegates. Did you see their primitive clothing? One alien whispered loudly enough for them to hear. I heard they still eat dead animals, said another. Perhaps in a few thousand years they might evolve past their violent nature, laughed a third. Jake and Amy walked through the massive doors and back down the metal hallway. Neither spoke until they were safely aboard their small transport ship. Amy said quietly, "What do we tell Earth?" Jake stared out the viewport at the massive alien space station growing smaller behind them. His face was hard, his eyes cold with something that looked like determination mixed with anger. We tell them exactly what happened here today, he said. And then we make sure humanity never has to ask for permission again. 6 months after the crushing rejection at the Galactic Federation, Jake Morrison stood in a secure underground facility buried 3 miles beneath the Colorado mountains. The massive briefing room was filled with the most powerful people on Earth. President Helen Carter sat at the head of a long metal table, her face serious as she listened to Jake's report. Around the table sat military leaders from every major nation. General Ryan Torres represented the United States military. Colonel Lue spoke for China's forces. Admiral Nikolai Petrov came from Russia's naval command. Dozens of other officers, scientists, and government officials filled the remaining seats. They treated us like insects, Jake said, his voice steady, but his eyes burning with controlled anger. Not just primitive, but completely worthless. They laughed at our technology, our politics, our entire civilization. To them, we are nothing more than animals that learned to use tools. Dr. Lisa Park, Earth's leading expert on alien technology, activated a holographic display in the center of the room. 3-dimensional images of alien ships and weapons floated. In the air above the table, the technology looked smooth and elegant, almost artistic in its design. I've spent the last 6 months analyzing every piece of data we collected from the Federation station, Lisa said. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it has a weakness. They've become comfortable with their superiority. Every species uses the same basic principles, the same energy sources, the same weapon designs. President Carter leaned forward. What exactly are you saying, Doctor? I'm saying they think inside a box, Lisa replied. They expect everyone to develop technology the same way they did. Energy shields, plasma weapons, faster-than-light drives that work on gravitational manipulation. It's all very predictable. General Torres crossed his arms. And that helps us how exactly? We don't have any of those things. Lisa smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. That's exactly the point, General. They expect us to try to copy their technology. Instead, we should use what makes humans different from every other species in the galaxy. Which is what? Asked Admiral Petrov. Our ability to adapt and our talent for warfare, Lisa answered. Think about it. Every major alien species we encountered has achieved peace within their own kind. They've moved beyond conflict, beyond the need for military innovation. They build weapons for show, for deterrence, not for actual combat. Colonel Liu nodded slowly. You're suggesting they've forgotten how to actually fight. More than that, Lisa continued. They've never had to fight an enemy that doesn't follow their rules. They expect elegant ship-to-ship duels with energy weapons. They expect formal declarations of war and negotiated surrenders. They've never faced an enemy that simply wants to destroy them completely. The room fell silent as the implications became clear. President Carter was the first to speak. You're talking about building a military force specifically designed to fight aliens. I'm talking about building a military force designed to win, Lisa corrected. The aliens have better individual technologies, but we have something they don't. We have 10,000 years of experience killing each other efficiently. Jake stepped forward. Dr. Park is right. During our time at the Federation Station, I observed their security forces. They carry weapons that look impressive, but are clearly ceremonial. Their ships are built for comfort and status, not for battle. They've been at peace so long they've forgotten what real violence looks like. General Torres stood up and walked to the holographic display.
What do you need from us?
Doctor, everything, Lisa replied. I need unlimited funding, complete government support, and absolute secrecy. What I'm proposing will require the combined industrial capacity of the entire planet. President Carter exchanged glances with the other world leaders present. And what exactly are you proposing? Project Prometheus, Lisa announced. We're going to build a fleet that will make the aliens wish they had accepted our membership application. Dr. Park manipulated the holographic controls, and the alien technology disappeared. In its place appeared blueprints for human spacecraft. But these were unlike anything anyone in the room had ever seen. The ships were dark, angular, and aggressive-looking. Every line suggested violence and efficiency. These ships won't be built for exploration or diplomacy, Lisa explained. They'll be weapons, pure and simple. While the aliens build beautiful ships that look like art projects, we'll build warships that exist only to destroy other ships. Admiral Petrov studied the designs carefully. The armor looks strange. What is it? Adaptive armor, Lisa replied. Something the aliens have never seen before. Instead of trying to match their energy shields, we're developing armor that learns from each attack and becomes stronger. The more they shoot at us, the more resistant we become to their weapons. What about our own weapons? Asked Colonel Liu. Lisa smiled again, and this time it was genuinely frightening. Kinetic weapons. Railguns firing solid projectiles at incredible speeds. While they're charging up their plasma cannons and energy weapons, we'll be putting metal slugs through their holes faster than they can react. The room buzzed with quiet conversations as military leaders discussed the implications. President Carter called for silence. This is a massive undertaking, she said. We're talking about militarizing our entire space program and dedicating enormous resources to building weapons for a war that may never happen. The war already started, Jake interrupted. It started the moment they laughed at us and dismissed us as worthless. They just don't know it yet. General Torres nodded in agreement. If we're going to do this, we need to do it right. Complete. Security, total commitment. Agreed, said President Carter. Project Prometheus is officially authorized. Dr. Park, you have whatever you need. General Torres, you'll coordinate military aspects. Admiral Petrov, we'll need your submarine experience. For space operations, she looked around the room at each person present. This project is classified at the highest possible level. No one outside this room learns about it without my personal authorization. We have one goal and one goal only. President Carter stood up, her voice carrying the weight of authority. When humanity returns to the Galactic Federation, we won't be asking for membership. We'll be announcing that the galaxy has new owners. The meeting continued for 6 more hours, planning the details of humanity's transformation from a rejected species to a galactic power. Outside the bunker, the world continued its normal routine, unaware that their leaders had just declared war on the stars themselves. 2 years had passed since Project Prometheus began in the hidden facility beneath. Dr. Lisa Park stood in the massive underground instruction bay, watching as hundreds of workers assembled humanity's first true warship. The vessel looked nothing like the elegant alien craft they had studied. It was dark gray, covered in sharp angles, and built for one purpose only: destroying other ships. Status report, Lisa called to her chief engineer, Commander Alex Stone. Alex wiped grease from his hands with a dirty cloth. Hull plating is complete on the prototype. The adaptive armor system is installed and tested. We've run simulations against every alien weapon signature we have data on, and the results? Better than expected, Alex replied with satisfaction. The armor learns from each impact. After the first few hits from energy weapons, it becomes almost completely resistant. The aliens will need to switch tactics mid-battle, something their rigid combat doctrine doesn't allow for. Lisa nodded and walked to the next section of the facility here. Teams of technicians worked on the ship's weapon systems. Unlike alien energy weapons that required complex charging systems and exotic materials, human weapons were brutally simple. Railguns used electromagnetic fields to launch solid metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Chief weapons. Officer Captain Maria Rodriguez supervised the installation of the main gun battery. Each railgun can fire a tungsten slug the size of a telephone pole at 10% the speed of light, she explained to Lisa. The impact energy is equivalent to a nuclear weapon, but there's no radiation and no way to defend against it. How many shots per minute? Lisa asked. 20 per gun. We have 12 guns per ship, Maria answered. The aliens' energy weapons need time to charge between shots. Our guns just keep firing until we run out of ammunition. Lisa smiled at the elegant simplicity. While the aliens built complex weapons that required rare materials and sophistication, technology, humans built weapons that turned common metals into unstoppable projectiles. It was the difference between an art project and a hammer. In another section of the facility, Captain Tony Wilson trained the first group of human void pilots. These men and women were not explorers or diplomats. They were soldiers preparing for the most violent conflict in human history. Forget everything you know about space combat from movies, Tony told his trainees. There's no sound, no atmospheric drag, no up or down. But there's physics, and physics kills. The training simulator showed a battle between human and alien. Ships. The alien vessels moved in predictable patterns, following established galactic combat protocols. The human ships moved like predators, using momentum and deception to get close enough for killing shots. The aliens fight like they're in a tournament, Tony continued. They expect formal rules, honor, and fair play. We fight like we're trying to survive. Use asteroids for cover. Attack from multiple directions. Target their engines first to disable them, then destroy them at close range. One trainee raised her hand. What if they try to surrender? Tony's expression became cold. Had their chance to treat us with respect? They chose to laugh at us instead. No prisoners, no mercy, no second chances. Above ground, the world continued its normal routine, unaware of the massive project happening beneath their feet. Construction platforms orbited Earth in increasing numbers, officially building communication satellites and research stations. In reality, they were manufacturing components for humanity's secret fleet. The asteroid belt became humanity's primary resource source. Automated mining ships stripped valuable metals from floating rocks, while construction vessels built hidden shipyards in the shadow of larger asteroids. To any alien observers, it would look like normal system development by a primitive species. Dr. Enz. Lisa made another breakthrough that changed everything. In her laboratory, she examined samples of alien technology recovered from their brief visit to the Federation station. The aliens used energy-based systems for everything, from weapons to shields to communications. They've become dependent on a single technological approach, she explained to President Carter during a secure video call. It's like they've forgotten that other methods exist. What does that mean for us? The President asked. It means we can build things they can't understand or counter, Lisa replied. They expect energy shields, so we use kinetic weapons that ignore shields completely. They expect electronic warfare, so we use hardened mechanical systems that can't be hacked. They expect predictable tactics, so we use chaos and violence. In space, Captain Alex Stone commanded the construction of humanity's secret fleet from the bridge of Orbital Platform 7 through the reinforced windows. He could see dozens of human warships in various stages of completion. Each ship was different from the others, designed for specific combat roles. The smallest ships were fast attack craft, built to swarm larger vessels and overwhelm their defenses with sheer numbers. Medium ships carried the heaviest weapons, designed to punch through alien armor with concentrated firepower. The largest ships were mobile command centers, coordinating fleet actions and providing fire support. "How many ships will we have ready?" "For the first phase," Alex asked his operations officer. 200 combat vessels, plus support ships and logistics craft, came the reply. "The aliens think we can barely reach our own moon. They have no idea we've been building an invasion fleet." Meanwhile, Captain Maria Rodriguez established training centers on Earth's moon and several asteroids. Human soldiers practiced zero gravity, combat, shipboarding operations, and urban warfare in alien environments. Unlike alien military forces that hadn't seen real combat in centuries, human forces trained as if their lives depended on it. "The aliens have forgotten what war actually looks like," Maria told her officers. "They think it's about honor and formal challenges. It's about killing the enemy before they kill you." The secret construction continued day and night. Factories on Earth worked at maximum capacity, producing weapons, armor, and electronics for the growing fleet. Resource extraction operations expanded throughout the solar system, gathering materials needed for the largest military buildup in human history. As the third year of Project Prometheus began, humanity was no longer the primitive species that had been rejected by the Galactic Federation. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that had weaponized their rejection and turned it into unstoppable military force. The aliens had laughed at humanity's primitive technology. Soon they would learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one you underestimate completely. 3 years after Earth's rejection by the Galactic Federation, Hive Commander Vextra of the Krexana Imperial Fleet received a disturbing report. His scouting ships had lost contact with patrol vessels near the Outer Rim systems. Ships had last been seen investigating a small system marked in Federation records as inhabited by a primitive species called humans. Vextra stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crimson Mandible, studying the tactical display. His black chitinous armor gleamed under the ship's lights, and his compound eyes reflected the holographic star maps. Behind him, dozens of Krexina officers worked at their stations, their mandibles clicking in quiet conversation.
"How many ships
"Are missing?" Vextra asked his communications officer. 12 scout vessels, Commander. All disappeared within the same week while conducting routine surveys of the human system. Vextra's mandibles clicked in annoyance. The Krexina had been expanding their territory for decades, claiming uninhabited systems and dealing with primitive species that sometimes objected to their presence. Usually a show of force was enough to make the primitives surrender and accept Krexina rule. "Prepare a battle squadron," Vextra ordered. "We will investigate this system personally and deal with whatever destroyed our scouts." Within hours, 20 Krexina warships formed up around the Crimson Mandible. Each ship was a work of art, its hull covered in decorative patterns that showed the status and achievements of its crew. Energy weapons gleamed from weapon ports, and defensive shields flickered with controlled power. The journey to the human system took 3 days at faster-than-light speed. As the Krexina fleet dropped back into normal space at the edge of the solar system, Vextra expected to find debris from his missing scouts and perhaps a few primitive human vessels hiding among the planets. Instead, his sensors detected something impossible. Advanced ship signatures filled the asteroid belt. Massive construction platforms orbited the outer planets. Energy readings suggested industrial activity on a scale that rivaled major Federation worlds. "This is wrong," Vextra said, his voice carrying confusion and growing alarm. Humans were classified as primitive. They barely had chemical rockets 3 years ago, before his tactical officer could respond. Space around the Krexina fleet erupted in violence. Ships emerged from the shadows of asteroids like predators that had been waiting for prey. These vessels looked nothing like traditional Federation ships. They were dark, angular, and moved with deadly purpose. Captain Tony Wilson commanded the Human Assault Squadron from the bridge of his ship, the Retribution. He had been waiting for this moment for months, hidden in the asteroid belt with 40 other human warships. Intelligence reports suggested the aliens would eventually come to investigate their missing scouts. "All ships, this is Wilson," he broadcast. To his fleet, "Remember your training. No warnings, no negotiations. Hit them hard and fast." The human ships accelerated toward the Crexina fleet at speeds that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. The alien sensors registered the approach, but their targeting systems struggled to lock onto the human ships. Adaptive. Armor that covered each human vessel scattered. Sensor beams and confused alien computers. Vextra watched in horror as his formation was torn apart within minutes. Human railguns fired tungsten slugs at incredible speeds, punching through Crexina energy shields like they were made of paper. The elegant alien weapons, designed for formal duels between civilized species, proved useless against enemies that fought like the galaxy was trying to kill them. Return fire. Vextra screamed, but his weapons officers were already trying. Crexina plasma cannons charged up their shots, following established combat protocols that had worked for centuries. But by the time they were ready to fire, the human ships had moved to new positions. The human fleet split into small groups, attacking from multiple directions simultaneously. Some ships used asteroids for cover, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Others came straight at the alien fleet, their armor absorbing energy weapon hits and growing stronger with each impact. Captain Wilson's ship closed to point-blank range with a Crexina cruiser. His railguns fired continuously, each shot tearing chunks from the alien vessel's hull. The cruiser's return fire struck his adaptive armor, which analyzed the energy signature and immediately began developing resistance. "Target their engines," Wilson ordered his weapons officer. "Disable them first, then finish them." It was a tactic the aliens had never encountered. In traditional galactic warfare, ships fought until one side acknowledged defeat and surrendered. The idea of deliberately crippling an enemy to prevent escape was considered barbaric by Federation standards. Vextra's flagship shuddered as human weapons struck its hull. His shields flickered and failed under the constant bombardment. Around him, his bridge crew worked frantically to coordinate a defense. But human tactics made no sense according to everything they had learned about space combat. "Commander," his tactical officer called out. "They're not following any recognized combat protocols. They're attacking disabled ships instead of accepting surrender."
Oh.
"This is impossible," Vextra replied, his voice filled with disbelief. "They were primitives just 3 years ago. How do they have this technology?" Through his ship's viewports, he could see human vessels moving between the wreckage of his fleet, methodically destroying any Crexina ship that still showed signs of life. There was no mercy, no attempt to take prisoners, no respect for the traditional rules of warfare. Captain Wilson opened a communication channel to the alien flagship. "Crexina vessel, this is Captain Wilson of the human fleet. You came here expecting to find primitives cowering in fear. Instead, you found a species that spent 10,000 years learning how to kill efficiently." Vextra's ship was dying around him. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space, and his crew was either dead or unconscious. He managed to activate his emergency transmitter, sending a desperate message back to Crexina space. "This is Hive Commander Vextra," he broadcast. "The humans are not primitive. They have advanced weapons and ships throughout their system. The entire battle squadron has been destroyed. They fight like nothing we have ever encountered," warned the Federation. "These creatures are not just dangerous, they are." His transmission cut off as Wilson's ship fired a final salvo, breaking the Crexina flagship in half. The explosion lit up the asteroid belt for several seconds, before fading into the cold darkness of space. Of the 21 Crexina ships that had entered the human system, only one escaped. A small scout vessel that had been positioned at the edge of the battle managed to jump to faster-than-light speed before the human ships could intercept it. Captain Wilson watched the lone survivor disappear on his sensors. He had deliberately allowed it to escape, following orders from Earth Command. The galaxy needed to know that humanity was no longer asking for permission to exist. The age of human expansion had begun. It would be written in the wreckage of anyone foolish enough to stand in their way. The emergency session of the Galactic Federation Council was unlike anything in recorded history. Ambassador Zixthal of the Velthari stood before the same chamber, where he had once laughed at human requests for membership. Now his three eyes showed genuine fear as he addressed the assembled delegates. The Krexina battle squadron has been completely destroyed, he announced, his musical voice lacking its usual arrogance. 21 ships, including their newest heavy cruiser, were wiped out by human forces in less than 2 hours. The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. Delegates from dozens of species spoke in urgent whispers, trying to understand how such a thing was possible. The massive Nethes representative waved its tentacles in agitation, while the insectoid species clicked their mandibles in patterns that suggested extreme distress. Admiral Kelvis of the Nethes Military Council activated the central holographic display. Three-dimensional recordings from the surviving Krexina scout ship played for all to see. The images showed human warships emerging from asteroid shadows, their dark holes bristling with weapons that fired continuously without pause. "This is impossible," declared Commander Thylek of the Crystalline Zephyrians. 3 years ago, these humans could barely reach their own moon. How did they have faster-than-light travel and military-grade weapons? More importantly, added a floating Aquari delegate from its gas-filled tank. How did they develop such effective combat tactics? Their ships move like they were designed specifically for warfare. Zixthel manipulated the holographic controls, showing detailed analysis of the human weapons. Our scientists have studied the battle recordings. The humans are using kinetic weapons that completely bypass energy shields. Their projectiles move at significant fractions of light speed and carry enormous kinetic energy. "But kinetic weapons are primitive," protested a Velthari engineer. "They require massive amounts of energy to accelerate solid objects to useful velocities. No civilized species has used such crude methods for millennia." "Crude but effective," Admiral Kelvis replied grimly. "While we perfected elegant energy weapons, the humans apparently focused on making simple weapons devastatingly powerful. Our shields are designed to deflect energy, not solid matter moving at relativistic speeds." The tactical analysis continued for hours. Federation experts struggled to understand human military doctrine, which seemed to violate every accepted principle of civilized warfare. Unlike galactic combat traditions that emphasized honor, formal challenges, and opportunities for surrender, the humans fought as if they intended to completely destroy their enemies. "They targeted disabled ships," reported the Krexina military attach, his mandibles clicking nervously. "Even after our vessels were clearly unable to fight, the humans continued attacking until everything was destroyed. They took no prisoners and accepted no surrenders." Dr. Reltana, the Federation's leading expert on primitive species development, studied the data with growing alarm. "This suggests the humans have been planning military actions since their rejection from our council. The timeline indicates they began major industrial expansion immediately after Ambassador Morrison's departure." "You're suggesting they deliberately prepared for war?" asked Zixthal. "No. I'm suggesting they took our rejection as a declaration of hostility," Dr. Reltana replied. "While we dismissed them as primitive and irrelevant, they apparently interpreted our mockery as a threat to their survival." Admiral Kelvis stood to address the full assembly. "Regardless of how we reached this point, we now face a serious military threat. Human forces have established themselves throughout their star system and are apparently expanding to neighboring systems. Intelligence reports suggest they have built a significant fleet." "How significant?" asked the Aquari delegate. "Unknown, but substantial. Our long-range sensors have detected construction activity and ship movements consistent with a major military buildup. The humans appear to have weaponized their entire industrial capacity." The debate that followed revealed the depth of Federation complacency. For centuries, the major species had known only peace and technological competition. Their military forces existed primarily for show and to intimidate primitive species into compliance. None had fought a real war in living memory. "We need to respond decisively," declared Admiral Kelvos. "If we allow this human aggression to continue, other primitive species might follow their example. The entire galactic order could collapse." "Do you propose?" asked Zixthal. "Joint military operation?" "5 species. Our best ships and most experienced crews. We demonstrate overwhelming force and demand human surrender. If they refuse, we eliminate their military capacity and return them to their proper place as a primitive species." The vote was unanimous. Within days, the largest military fleet in galactic history began assembling at Federation staging areas. Ships from the Velthari, Crexina, Nethys, Zephyrion, and Aquari fleets formed a combined armada of over 200 vessels. Meanwhile, Dorth. Admiral Kate Foster received intelligence reports about the Federation's military buildup from human surveillance networks. She stood in the command center buried beneath the Pacific Ocean, studying holographic displays that showed alien ship movements throughout nearby star systems. "They're taking the bait," she told President Carter during a secure communication. "Our attack on the Crexina fleet has convinced them to respond with overwhelming force exactly as we predicted." "Are we ready?" the president asked. "More than ready," Kate replied. "They're gathering their ships in predictable formations, following standard Federation military doctrine. They expect us to be intimidated by their numbers and surrender without a fight." In our response, Kate smiled, but it was the expression of a predator anticipating prey. "Project Prometheus is complete. We have over 3,000 combat vessels positioned throughout our expanded territory, plus support ships and mobile weapons platforms. The aliens think they're bringing overwhelming force to crush a primitive rebellion." She gestured to the tactical displays showing human fleet positions. "They're about to discover that sometimes the species you dismiss as primitive are simply the ones who remember how to fight total war." President Carter nodded slowly. "When they arrive, we show them what 10,000 years of human warfare evolution looks like when applied to galactic combat," Kate answered. "The Federation spent centuries building a peaceful civilization. We spent the last 3 years building the most efficient killing machines in galactic history. The stage was set for a confrontation that would reshape the galaxy." The Federation fleet approached with confidence, certain that their technological superiority and numerical advantage would quickly end human resistance. They had no idea they were flying into the most devastating trap in military history. Admiral Kelvas of the Nethys fleet stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, the Eternal Tide, as the Federation armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human star system. Round him 200 of the galaxies. Most advanced warships formed perfect battle formations, their hulls gleaming with the symbols of 5 different species united in common purpose. "Impressive," commented Ambassador Zixtal, who had insisted on witnessing humanity's surrender personally. "The humans cannot possibly resist such overwhelming force." Through the bridge viewports, the alien fleet was a sight to inspire awe and terror. Velthari crystal ships caught the light of the distant sun, their elegant curves reflecting rainbow patterns across space. Massive Nethys vessels extended writhing tentacles covered in weapon ports. Sleek Crexina warships buzzed with barely contained energy, while Zephyrian crystalline dreadnoughts sparkled like floating diamonds. "Begin scanning the system," Kelvos ordered his sensor officers. "Locate all human military assets and prepare surrender demands." The initial sensor sweeps showed exactly what the Federation expected. A primitive industrial system with construction platforms around the major planets, some mining operations in the asteroid belt, and a handful of crude human vessels hiding near the gas giants. "Pathetic," laughed one of the Velthari officers. 12 human ships against our 200. This will be over in minutes." Kelvas activated the fleet communication system to broadcast his ultimatum throughout the human system. "Human forces. This is Admiral Kelvas, commanding the Joint Federation fleet. You will surrender immediately and submit to Federation authority. Resistance is futile and will only result in the complete destruction of your military assets." The response came not in words, but in action. Space around the Federation fleet suddenly filled with new contacts. Ships emerged from asteroid shadows, where they had been invisible to sensors. activated throughout the system. Weapons platforms that had been disguised as construction equipment revealed their true nature. In seconds, the Federation fleet found itself surrounded by over 3,000 human vessels. Admiral Kate Foster stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Retribution, watching as her carefully planned trap closed around the alien armada. For 3 years, humanity had prepared for this moment, building not just ships but an entire military doctrine designed to defeat technologically superior enemies. All human forces, this is Admiral Foster, she broadcast to her fleet. Today we end the age of Federation dominance, show them what happens when you dismiss a species that conquered its own planet through 10,000 years of warfare. Battle began instantly. Human ships attacked from every direction simultaneously, their dark hulls moving with predatory grace. The Federation formation, perfect for intimidation and formal combat, proved disastrously vulnerable to the swarm. Tactics humanity had perfected, Voss watched in horror as his elegant battle lines disintegrated under the human assault. The aliens had expected a traditional engagement with formal rules and predictable patterns. Instead, they faced an enemy that fought like space itself was trying to kill them. "Impossible," shouted Zixtel, as explosions lit up the space around. "Them? Where did all these ships come from? They were here all along." Kate Foster's voice came over the communication channels. "Hidden, waiting, preparing. You thought you were bringing overwhelming force to crush a primitive rebellion. Instead, you flew into the largest military trap in galactic history." Human railguns fired continuously, their tungsten projectiles, moving too fast for alien sensors to track effectively. Federation energy shields, designed to stop plasma weapons and energy beams, offered no protection against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The elegant alien weapons, requiring time to charge and aim, proved useless against enemies that never stopped moving. The Valtheri crystal ships, beautiful and artistic, shattered like glass under kinetic impacts. Nethi's vessels built for comfort and intimidation found their tentacle weapon arrays torn away by human fire. Krexina warships, designed for formal dueling, were overwhelmed by swarms of smaller human craft attacking from multiple directions. "Admiral," called Kelvis's tactical officer, his tentacles writhing in panic. "We're losing ships faster than we can target the humans. Their adaptive armor is learning from our weapons. Each shot we fire makes them stronger." Kelvis tried to restore order to his fleet, but human tactics made traditional command impossible. The humans didn't fight in formations or follow predictable patterns. They moved like a pack of predators, isolating individual alien ships and destroying them with concentrated firepower before moving to the next target. "Request immediate reinforcements," Kelvis ordered his communications officer. "Sir" came the terrified reply, "There are no reinforcements. This is the largest fleet the Federation has ever assembled. If we lose here, there's nothing left to send." The realization hit the alien commander like a physical blow. The Federation had committed everything to this battle, confident that their technological superiority would guarantee victory. They had never considered the possibility that a primitive species could develop weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter their advantages. Admiral Foster's ship closed to point-blank range with the Federation flagship. Through the viewports, she could see alien crew members running in panic as their shields failed and their hull breached in multiple places. "Admiral Kelvos," she broadcast directly to the enemy flagship. 3 years ago, your Federation laughed at humanity. You called us primitive, violent, and unworthy of galactic civilization. You were right about one thing. We are violent. We spent 10,000 years perfecting the art of warfare on a single planet. Now we have the galaxy to practice on. Eternal Tide's weapon systems failed as human railgun fire destroyed their power generators. Around the flagship, the Federation fleet was in complete collapse. Ships that had entered the battle in perfect formation now drifted as burning wreckage or fled desperately toward the edge of the system. "Surrender," Kelvos transmitted desperately. "We surrender. Please show mercy. Mercy." Kate Foster's voice was cold as space itself. Did you show mercy when you dismissed us as worthless? Did you offer understanding when you laughed at our request for membership? The human fleet continued its methodical destruction of the Federation Armada, unlike the aliens who had expected. Formal rules and negotiated surrenders, humanity fought until their enemies were completely eliminated or utterly broken. Within 6 hours, the largest military fleet in galactic history had been reduced to scattered survivors fleeing in terror. The Federation's technological superiority, their numerical advantage, and their confidence in their own invincibility had all proven worthless against an enemy that fought with the fury of the rejected. And the skill of the desperate is the last. Federation ships escaped into faster-than-light travel. Admiral Foster stood on her bridge, looking out at the debris field that had once been the galaxy's most powerful fleet. The sky was dark with the hulks of destroyed alien vessels, a monument to the price of underestimating humanity. "Signal Earth," she ordered her communications officer. "Tell them the galaxy has new owners,